everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for episode 2 of What If? What If T'Challa was a Star-Lord? Which I think was a weird title. I don't know why it wasn't just What If T'Challa was Star-Lord. They put like a Star-Lord, and I thought that was super weird. They always make it seem like Star-Lords are like a group. But I thought that was weird. I wanted to note that. But first off, great episode. I really enjoyed it. I still think I like the first episode more. For one, I prefer action over comedy. And two, it's not like I was laughing that hard in this episode. It was entertaining, but it's not like either episode really made me laugh. Like, holy crap, that was super funny. If anything, I think some of the funny stuff they did just fell flat for me. Like, having, I totally can't think of the character's name, but the guy who typically says who, and I can't think of the actor's name. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. I know his last name is like Hansu. So him coming in and do like, like, oh crap, he's Star-Lord, and he's like super, like he wants to be his best friend, and he's like a sillier version. He's actually just straight up a silly version, period, of his character from, the cinematic universe from Guardians as well as Captain Marvel. And I was like, okay, it just seems weird. I also didn't know it was him. Most of the people were actually the same actors, and it goes to show like how different all these people sound when they're not in that same set like personality, where like this dude is very stoic, but in this he's like super hyper, and it's like that doesn't even sound like the same person. Nebula, I thought it was a different actress. It's the same woman. I was like, that didn't sound like her at all. The Collector, that was actually him. That didn't even remotely sound like him from the movies. And I was like, oh, that was him too. Like, there were so many people in this where I was like, it's the actual actor. And I was like, that didn't sound like them in the slightest. And it was interesting to see that, getting to the credits, I was just like, oh crap, that was her. Oh, that was him. Oh, that was that guy too. I just didn't know that. Like, they got everybody in this, which is super. They pretty much got everybody except for Chris Pratt. Like, literally, pretty much every single person in this was the person from the movie. I don't know if the woman who's like the pink character, I don't know if that was actually her from Guardians of the Galaxy, but they had everybody. They literally had everyone except for Chris Pratt. I'm assuming that was T'Challa's father at the end. That was actually Denai Guerrera as Okoye. And I was like, they got her in for like half a second just to be like, that sounds like genocide. They got her in for, I'm sure that means she'll be in some of the other episodes, but I was like, they got her in to say like the most, like that was nothing. She said less than Kurt Russell. And he only shows up at the very end, but technically he said more than she did. And I was just like, they got both of them. And they didn't say jack. That was just like, yep, we got the actual actor to come in. No biggie. We're Disney. Just like, here's money, and we just bring them in. Like I said, I assume that means they got him in for more than just one thing, because it seems pointless to just be like, hey, it's cool fan service just to be like, we got the actual actors. Especially considering, episode 1, they didn't even have Chris Evans. They actually had Josh Keaton, who's amazing. Of course, he's, Spider-Man from Spectacular Spider-Man. So, of course, he's always the best. He's also the main male lead in Transformers Prime. He's in a million. He's Josh Keaton. Anyway, it was surprising to see how many of the people they actually had from the movies. That that was Sean Gunn as the second in command. That also kind of didn't sound like him, even though he was the same character. I was like, I can tell it's him, but there were definitely parts where I was like, it kind of doesn't sound like him at the same time. So it was really weird. I was just like, there's so many people in this that kind of didn't sound like themselves throughout the episode. But all in all, I still enjoyed it. I like seeing this experience of them going through, and it's very different, of course, from Guardians of the Galaxy. It was not like the first episode, which was a different type of Captain America, Captain Carter. And, she's more violent, so it's just the first Avenger movie, except it's her. And she's way cooler to watch, because she's just kicking everybody and destroying people. And this was like, here's a difference that is drastically different. Like, that was literally just a different person did it, but they pretty much went through the same stuff. Like, there were minute things that changed. They literally, I forgot I even had this here. They literally had Thanos show up in this, and he was just like, he talked me down. What can I say? Like, this was totally different from what happened in, like, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, the first episode was like, okay, that's like, that's like a slight diversion. If this was Loki, they'd be like, it's like slightly off. And then episode 2 is just like, whoa, that one's way off the sacred timeline. That one's way out there. But I liked it. I liked what they did with it, and seeing all these different versions of characters. Nebula was okay. We don't see Gamora, but I know she shows up later, so depending on how all this weird stuff comes together, that could end up being in this same universe. We technically don't know if this is really a different universe. Like, the What If universe could be one universe, because this was just, going from episode 1, it was literally like, okay, well, that was back during the war. The end of it literally shows up, boom, here we go with, Avengers. This is all in space. It could literally be the exact same universe. We can't really tell based on these two episodes together, because there's nothing in either universe that's like, oh, well, of course, this is the same universe that Captain Carter was in. We don't really know that, but it's interesting to see, because I know in some of the trailers they have multiple characters together. So I do think this is all the same universe, and I think, maybe after a couple episodes, we'll start to see that they'll finally start really putting it together. Like, surprise, I guess, because and I only know this really because of the trailer, so that's the only reason it's like that. But it'll be like they'll start putting hints in, like, oh, this really is, the what if universe is actually just one universe, but there could be, millions of others, and who knows, we might actually see multiple universes collide just within this show. I think that would be amazing to see, honestly. But I like what they did with this, like the drastic changes they had. Thanos was good. The Blackguard, they used to work for him, but then he was like, all right, I kind of threw all that stuff away. So they ended up going off to the Collector, who was like super jacked and everything in this, and he's like a criminal warlord and everything. So because Thanos stopped, he became insanely powerful, and it was like, okay, these are, just little things here and there that can happen. They referenced the ending where, Ego goes to Earth, and it's like, oh, he meets his son, and it's like, that could spell the end of the world, but that's a story for another time. It's like, okay, that's interesting, just like all these little things. And like I said, episode 1, it was a little thing, like a couple of things change. This was a drastic difference for everything that happened, so I like the way they handled it. And T'Challa was just good. He was just a good guy, period. It was kind of that nature versus nurture type of thing. He was really young, but he was old enough to just be like, I'm just a good person. And apparently he's great. Like, he's literally like the Robin Hood of the galaxy, where he's just like, he can talk anybody down from Thanos. I love that they kept referencing it too. It was like, it's calculated. It's not genocide. It's necessary. So I like the jokes that they kept throwing to that one. But all in all, it was definitely a fun episode. I would just say I still preferred the first one. I just like the action of it. I like personally, I like the pace. A lot of people mentioned that they didn't like how fast paced it felt, because it was so familiar with it being like just the first movie. So it was kind of like, I'd like to see them flesh it out, because it's so close to being just the movie. You kind of just want a longer version of it. And this is so drastically different, where it's just like, of course, I would still love a longer version of it, just because that would be cool to have. But because there is nothing where you're like, oh, they're going to kind of do this, but a little bit different. It was like everything was just different. They, like, the only real thing they did was they went to meet the Collector. And even that was drastically different because of the role that he played within that universe compared to the main MCU. So even if there were like slight things where it was like, oh, well, we kind of want to do this that is, familiar to people that saw Guardians 1, still insanely different. Like, Drax does show up, technically, so does Star-Lord, but Groot, Gamora, Rocket, none of them actually show up at all. So it was just interesting to see how drastically different this one was from, episode 1 was like slight divergent, massive divergent, all over the place. Like, Thanos is good. That's just huge difference right there. But I like the way they handled it, like I said. I just still feel like I enjoyed the first one more. I just really did enjoy this one. It was cool. Howard the Duck was back. Seth Green played him again, so that was nice. And I love how he was just like, oh, man, I'm thirsty. Let me get a drink. And he's just like, hey, where you go? Like, alarm's going off. And he's like, where you going, man? And he's just calm. Like, nothing mattered to him. So I just thought that was funny. But I just didn't like it as much. But I did enjoy the episode. It was just kind of like, okay, this is cool. There were some moments where things would happen where it's like the fact that Thanos still worked with, I think, the Blackguard. They don't say anything. They didn't even throw like one line of dialogue in there when they were fighting against him, where it's like they reference like, you've fallen so far or anything like that. It was like they didn't give them any lines. I guess I don't know if they couldn't get the actors. They could have gotten anybody really, but it was weird. Like, just little stuff like that where it was like, okay, they referenced the fact that he still basically used to lead them when he was the Mad Titan, and then when he literally has to fight them to protect his daughter and stuff, they don't have like anything to say to each other. There's like not even a singular line that's thrown in there, and it's just, like I said, it could literally have been like a throwaway line where, like, honestly, the line that Nebula gives them, where it's like, you're crazy, they could have given that to like Proxima Midnight or something, where she could have been like, to go up against us, like, you may be Thanos or whatever. And he also did seem somewhat weaker. Like, in general, he's insanely powerful. Like, even without the Infinity Gauntlet, he's supposed to be like, holy crap. But admittedly, I think everyone is weaker, compared to what they are in the comics, just because it's a lot easier to manage that story when it's not, 20 years worth of comics leading up to it. It's like, maybe a movie and a half or something for a character to exist. So they kind of dumbed everybody down as far as the MCU, but they just didn't throw, it was just a random little line, like just little things like that. The Gamora stuff where it was like, okay, so there's a question there, especially knowing that she does show up later. there's a huge question like, well, did they just not reference her at all? Which seems to be the case because she was super young, but so was Nebula. Like, they're both adopted, but they're like about the same age. So it was almost like he got Nebula and then he just like he stopped like right before he went one planet further. It's, there's something weird like that. And so I'm just like, I don't. It's like it's just confusing because I don't really understand, especially because, well, space numbers. Who the f knows? Because I'm just guessing off based off the actors. But I'm like, T'Challa was seemingly, I should say, kind of the same age as like Nebula and Gamora. But that doesn't really apply to anything. They could literally have said she's whatever age, and I don't know if that's I'm sure that's out there somewhere. But as far as the MCU version, but I don't know. It was just little stuff like that where I'm like, it feels like something's missing here, and it just at least a throwaway line or something like what about your other sister, anything like that. Like they just don't reference her, and then like I said, the stuff with him fighting against his former bodyguards basically, and they just don't put a little line in there, even if it's a different actor. It's like it's one line they could have thrown in, but thought it was interesting. And actually, they did have the actress because Proxima Midnight does say something when she finds out that it was a ploy. So I don't know why they didn't just throw like one singular line in there for her to reference the fact that they actually like used to work for him or anything. So I thought that was weird. But all in all, excuse me, fun episode. I would still say, like I've been saying this whole time, I prefer episode 1 more. I like the action of it. I like the style of it. I thought it was pretty funny. Like seeing, honestly, any of the Starks always end up being funny, unless it's Howard as an adult. Like he's not the greatest when he's like dad mode. Howard, he's not really funny there, but young Howard is funny, and obviously Tony's funny. So they're always great to watch. And in this one, it was definitely fun. It's always great to see more of the Guardians members. Seeing all the Ravagers and stuff like that. So that was cool. Michael Rooker's character coming back, whose name Yondu, there it is. I always just like this character. Him having like the whistle and stuff with the arrow. It's fun to watch. So I like how they handled it. I just didn't find the comedy to hit 100%. Especially, honestly, it was 100% Hansu's character, where it was like he was just like super over the top and like, man, like holy crap, you're gonna do something amazing like the whole episode. And I was like, I know it's an alternate universe. That's kind of the point of characters being so drastically different. But I also just didn't enjoy it. I was just like, he seems so over the top. Like, it almost seemed weird that he could have even been hired as a guard to do anything. With the way he acted towards Star-Lord, it just seemed weird that anyone would even remotely trust him to actually be a guard. I was just like, he just doesn't, in this universe, for him to be like fanboying like that, made it seem like he couldn't possibly be serious. Like, if you're going that hardcore over like some random dude in space who gives to the rich, or steals from the rich, gives to the poor type of thing, and you love that, by the way, but considering the context of the film, I would assume he still works for the same person and all this other stuff. So I don't know. Which I guess technically we never found out. I don't think he worked for Ronan the Accuser in the original. I don't remember who that he worked for now that I think about it. I think he was just there in the beginning, and then they reference it, in Captain Marvel that he used to be with them. But I was just like, that it just never hit. Like the whole episode, I was like, I just don't like how he's this goofy. And it just never hit for me because it just seemed way too over the top. But obviously that's just me personally. All in all, decent episode. Still looking forward to the next one. It didn't like throw me off of the show or anything like that. I like the story of him, T'Challa, I should say, thinking that Wakanda was destroyed, and then he found out that he was actually lied to, and his dad had been looking for him this whole time, and he was super pissed. And then, they actually still managed to kind of bond in the end, and then they take out the Collector. And then, of course, he totally gets killed by all the people he had locked up before. So that was cool. Also, of course, he has a million, excuse me, jeez, a million random things from the heroes. So he had, like, Captain America's shield. He had Hela's antler helmet deal. He also called it a Necro Sword, which I don't remember them saying that in the last Thor movie, in Ragnarok, and that's very specific considering what's coming up in the next movie. And I was like, I don't feel like they said that her stuff was like Necro Swords. They probably did, and I missed it, but I was like, I don't think they called her stuff Necro Swords. And considering Gore the God Butcher showing up in Thor 4 and him in the comics, I just thought that was interesting, and that, like I said, that could have been in the movie, and I just didn't notice it at the time, or I probably didn't even know the story of Gore at the time, and so it probably flew over my head. But I was just like, Necro Sword, you say? So I thought that was very interesting that they put that in there, because I'm like, I don't think they specified the name of her weapons technically in the film. So I thought that was cool. But he had a bunch of weapons. That I would say is like the one hint that it's a different universe than the first episode, because obviously Captain America doesn't exist in Captain Carter's universe, and that was Captain America's shield, and of course it was Thor's hammer and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, it's pretty interesting. That, just the classic thing, like, look at this, in this universe they must be dead, or something random. But all in all, fun episode. Very excited to see what they do next. I try not to look into these because I always want to be surprised, but I'm not gonna lie. The one episode, there's 2 episodes I'm waiting for. It's the one where they kind of do the Avengers thing, because that was in the trailer, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what that episode is going to be like. But the one I'm really looking forward to is what the F are they going to do with this Marvel Zombies. Like, I want that to just be its own series, which it really should be. But that's the one I'm looking forward to. I'm like, if there's one episode I'm hyped for, it's Marvel Zombies. I don't know how they're going to play it, but I'm super amped for that one. That's like the one episode where I'm like, there's a lot of other cool things. There's some stuff with Ultron that I see. If you look in the poster, there's some crazy stuff. But I'm like, I love zombies. The Marvel zombie story is really wild. They obviously can't touch like the whole. It's not insanely long, but it's far longer than you can cover in 30 minutes. But I'm excited for that one. That's like my number 1 hyped episode that I'm looking forward to. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode. I would also like to know, based on the episodes that you are familiar with, I think everyone was kind of like, holy crap, Marvel Zombies. I think that was the first one that was even mentioned when the logo came out. Somebody like zoomed in at the bottom right corner, like, it's that zombie Captain America, holy crap, Marvel Zombies. And everybody was hyped. So I think most people are like, they're finally going to do Marvel Zombies. Sadly, only in like a 30-minute capacity. Maybe they'll surprise us and they'll be like, surprise, this will go on for like at least 3 episodes. It won't, but Marvel Zombies should really get made. They should really do Marvel Zombies versus Evil Dead, but that's just a dream from a man, and that's just not going to happen. But they should, because that would be amazing for me. But I like this episode. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it. Like I said, we'd like to know what episode you guys are looking forward to most. If you don't know what's coming up, I think I may have asked this in the last one. What ifs would you guys like to see? Because there are a million stories that are in the comics. You can just make up one right now, like, what if blank happened? Like, I would love to know which ones you guys are interested in seeing the most. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.